Welcome to the Old Souls and Seekers podcast, a podcast that transcends the typical personal development journey. You're not new to this. You've read the books, attended the seminars, and perhaps even tried various coaching programs, yet something still feels amiss. Ilan and Guy have over 2 decades of relentless searching and $1 million invested in their personal growth quest. Here's the revelation. You're not missing anything. You're not even behind. You might have just been searching in the wrong places. In each episode, we'll uncover the most effective, straightforward practices that have profoundly impacted our lives and the tens of thousands of our clients from all over the world. This is about real, sustainable results for those dedicated to their personal and spiritual growth. So get ready to explore and enjoy the show.
Hi, everybody. Feel free to say hello in the chat box. Nice to be seen. Nice to be back. I thought it would be nice to have you maybe reflect for us a little bit this last year of your life. Ilan's birthday was a few days ago, and just kind of what you noticed this last 12 months, what's opening up, what are you intentions for yourself and this community over the next year or so?
Yeah, I had a beautiful birthday dinner with my my kids, my wife, my parents. We went to this amazing restaurant, which I've been trying to get back to now for like 4 years since we first came down here, before we even bought. And since that time, they were awarded a Michelin star, and now it's like damn near impossible. It's a super small restaurant, but it's like, you know, they open the thing 30 days in advance, and it's like every time I've tried, it's booked like the second that you click the button. So anyway, Fanny managed to make it happen. So we sat, and it was as good, if not better, than what I remember, which is always, you know, a beautiful thing. So anyway, we're sitting there, and we had like my kids shared amazing toasts, and our parents said amazing things, and Fanny said amazing things. And I was just really like drinking it all in. And at the end, you know, the cake comes, and you make a wish on the candle. And when it came time to make a wish, and it was like, okay, what do you want? And the thing that came to me was like, I just want more of what I have. Like, it wasn't anything, like, I'm not wanting for anything new or different. I'm in such a good space. I'm so content. I'm so happy with who's in my life, how I feel, my relationships, like all these things. I was just like, I honestly, I just want more of that. I don't need like some elaborate thing or this or that. And then I was talking to Julian, who, Guy and I, so he's Fanny's family friend. And I met him, whatever it was, 17 years ago. He just turned 33. So I met him, you know, when he was like 16, let's say. And we've been in each other's lives for quite a bit of time. And he was just sharing all this amazing praise of me, and Fanny was there. And he said this very interesting line. He said, you know, I've met people who are like incredibly financially successful, or have incredible businesses, or are really fit, whatever it might be. He goes, but of all the people that I've met, he goes, you're the only one that I can truly say that has all the areas at like a 10. He's like, you don't just focus on money, and you don't just focus on family, and you don't just focus on health, and you don't just focus on this. It's like, you just have all of it. And he goes, I've never met anyone else that has all of it. Like, even the most successful people that I know, like their relationships are shitty, or they let their health go, or they're so about the money. And he's like, and not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, I love that people have that. He goes, but just the way I've seen you live your life is just, to me, it's like the model that I want to try for. And I just sat there and I was like, wow, it's such an amazing thing. Remember, our tagline used to be have it all. And it was just kind of like thinking of that.
Yeah. Now more like you could have most of it. That's cool.
So
in my late 20s, my early 30s, I was egotistical enough to think at all.
no,
My
so
point is, I'm like, you could probably have most of it.
it really is like, so I had just a beautiful weekend celebrating and being with friends, new friends, old friends. And it just feels really, really special. I don't know that there's anything like profound that I'm trying to think of like that I want. I have been saying
in some ways, I do think that's a little bit even classier. It's like the not wanting to always progress, to push. There's just so much of that in society to really start accepting where we're at, what we have, the things we can be grateful for. To some degree, feels way more profound. I want to hear, but if you want to kind of expand on it, like obviously our vision of the world, our vision of ourselves, our vision of family, our vision of well-being, I think is just tends to be a bit more holistic.
Yeah.
And I'm maybe just speaking to like some of those holistic philosophies, like why do you think you've been able to generate that kind of life? Because I've heard other people say that to you as well, it's us, but to you specifically, about that. And I think there is something to be said about just creating balance across the board, not, because people are so hyper focused on one thing all the time and they specialize and it looks really good. But of course, nobody knows what's happening in the other 9/10 of their life where things are a total mess. And so they seem like they have it all together, but it's only together to the people who have that one specific problem, who are trying to solve that one specific problem, but it creates so many other issues. So anything you just want to share about that, I think would be useful.
Yeah. I mean, the one wish that so here's what we have been working on, and it's just this last year. I think, you and I have been at this for a total of 23 years, and I'm speaking more specifically to the work that we've done over the last 8 years. The one wish I have for humanity, and the thing that I see us providing for humanity through our teachings, this community, our coaches, our practices, etc., is the simple ability to just be with what is arising in yourself, in life, in your environment, moment by moment by moment by moment. And I'll tell you guys a funny story and why I'm bringing this up, because I ultimately believe that people are always like, how are you in such good shape? And they're always like, what do you eat? And, what's your protein intake? And what's your macros? And what do you do for workouts? And da, 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 da. And honestly, like, I can share all that with you. And I don't think that that's the thing that makes the difference. I think that stress is hands down the most impactful thing for humans. I think if you don't have the ability to be with and process stress, then you're fucked. It doesn't matter what your diet is, doesn't matter what your exercise routine is, because you are constantly creating inflammation, you're constantly creating undue stress, your body's in a constant state of fight or flight, you're not making rash decisions, you're not good to the people around you, you're not good to yourself. So to me, at the end of all of it is, if you can figure out ways to do that in a healthy way, then you're out of the predominant rat race, I think, that leads humanity. Because if you think about it, like, if someone doesn't feel well inside, let's just kind of play a few examples. Okay, so someone who is constantly out there striving to make more money, I can almost assure you with 99.9% accuracy that person has a void, a darkness within them that they feel like they're nothing, or they feel like they're not worth it, or not good enough, or whatever it is. And they have found a way to get accolades and to get acknowledgement through this avenue of making money, right? But at the end of that, there's no end to that game. There's no amount of Ferraris, there's no amount of yachts, there's no scale to their business where they're going to get to this number and all of a sudden they're going to feel well inside. the entire time that they're doing that, they feel unhealthy. They feel empty inside, and they try to fill that emptiness with cars and women and drinks and experiences and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying that's everyone. I'm just saying like that's a pretty specific thing, that a wounding that people fill with that, right? There's other people that will fill their aloneness or their abandonment or their disappointment through food or drugs or alcohol. And they're just abusing themselves that way to try to numb that out. So we all have coping mechanisms. And if we're relying on these coping mechanisms, we're not healthy. It doesn't matter how good certain areas of your life are, you're just not. So we went to this day party for my birthday, and friends invited friends and whatever. So we met this kid who was really, really great guy. Ended up moving from Denver, Colorado to Miami like 3 months ago. And so he's hanging out around us and having a great time. And then his friends leave, and he's like, is it cool if I just stay with you? We're like, yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the night, he's like, man, this has been one of the best days ever. Like, I've had such a hard time meeting genuine people, this and that, in Miami. It's been so nice. Like, you guys are just amazing, blah, 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 blah. And he found out at some point that it was my birthday, and he was like, because I guess his friends are, like of a certain age. And he's like, what is he like? What did he turn? Like 32, 33. And my friend's like, no, today's actually his 43rd birthday. And the kid was like, his what? Who? Him? Like, like pointing like in complete and utter disbelief. And he's like, dude, he's like, at most, I would have guessed you were like 35, maybe. And that would have been pushing it. Like, he's like, I could have thought you were like in your late 20s. And I would have been like, dude, amazing, right? And he said to me, he's like, how? Like, what's the secret? And the response I keep telling people as they've asked me, it's like, I think we have managed to find practices that have alleviated. I'm not saying that stress doesn't come and that life doesn't keep coming. Like, you can't unplug yourself from the inevitability of shit happening in life. It just happens. Like, people around you are going to get sick, or shit's going to happen with money, or like, it's an inevitability, right? How you respond to it and how you move through it, though, is what's going to determine whether you are aging yourself and every cell in your body moment by moment by moment, or you're just allowing life to kind of flow through. And so my wish for everyone on planet Earth, is to ground themselves in practices that train. This is not something the Guy and I were born with. I mean, sure as fuck no. Train yourself to learn to be with anything that arises in your life, to be able to find support from people around you when you need it. And most importantly, to know that you have a dream team of people around you, that no matter what is happening in your life, you have those people in your corner to support you and help you move through these things. If you do not have those things, like, to me, I've broken it down to 3 very simple pillars. Pillar number 1, you have to get out of your mind. And personal development, unfortunately, the work of personal development is mindset work. So it actually works with the programming that has created all of these blocks for you in the first place. So if you're only doing mindset work, you're looking in the wrong place. So pillar number 1 is get out of your mind and start diving into the body. Pillar number 2 is you have to use and receive practice with other practitioners in order to learn how to provide this for yourself. Your body and nervous system never received the template on how to do this. Your mind has no idea, and it can't explain it to you. The only way to learn is through the experience of being with another. If you don't have that, you're just going to keep repeating the same things over and over and over. So you got no shot. So pillar number 2 is like actually work with people who can provide you these templates so that you can recreate that. And pillar number 3, like I said, is creating a dream team. And if you can have those 3 things in your life, your next year will be so different. I don't know if you got a chance to see, bro, there was a beautiful post by Sally in the group. And then Adrian also commented in the comments about it. And they were just saying how like they don't even recognize themselves, how different they look and feel and interacting with life. And that, to me, that's my wish for humanity. I don't think there is a way that you can process your trauma or figure yourself out or do any of that stuff. And I say this after having tried very, very diligently for 15 years. You cannot outrun yourself. You cannot outfigure yourself. You cannot outmaneuver the mind. Like, it's an impossibility. And I talk to people every week, and I hear so many people stuck in the same place. You cannot, not through therapy, not through mindset work, not through reframing, not through understanding, not through reading. You cannot get yourself out of your own way. Like, it can't. And if at any level you are playing the game of trying to figure yourself out, overcome something, get around something, I'm telling you, like, I did it for 15 years. Guy did it for 15 years. I've spoken to people who have done it for 30 and 40 years. It doesn't fucking work. It's great to understand who you are and how they are and how it all is. It's fabulous. But it has no impact long-term on what's happening in here. And so that's my wish. My wish is that people got off of that island, that like wheel, and moved into a space of feeling their way through, allowing for whatever wants to arise to be there, because it is the greatest gift that you can give to yourself. And then once you give it to yourself, it becomes the greatest gift that you can give to your kids or your partner or spouse or loved ones or people in your workspace. One of our coaches just went home, first time like being with her parents in over a decade, and her parents are like, they're like, we don't even recognize you. The way that you communicate, the way that you operate, the way how eloquent you are, like the way you have these understandings, like. And so it's beautiful to get these reflections, and that's why I was so it's so nice, like on a birthday, to really hear those things. But it's like at the end of the day, it's not because I was born this way. It's not because I read some book. It's not because there's some like magic sauce that has been hidden from you that I received. I just do the work every day, day in, day out. Like, and I struggled through it for the first few years. I went through all the same shit that every one of our students does, which is like, I can't do this. This is not from me. This is hard. Am I doing this right? This doesn't feel like that. Blah, blah. I went through all of it. In fact, much, 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 much slower than most of what our students go through. We went through it. And then something happens and something shifts and it opens and you're like, whoa, this is new. This is different. And so for me, that's what I want. I want more of that in my life. I want more of that in the lives of the people around me. Yeah, I feel really blessed to have been open enough and courageous enough to say yes to this path when it showed itself to me and not waited. Like, I talked to so many people and they're like, yeah, you know, I'll just wait. I'll figure it out. And I'm like, okay, so you'll come back in 2-3 years and tell me that you wish you would have started 2-3 years ago. It's like, why? If the stuff that you're doing isn't getting you the results that you want, It's not because you're broken. I know your mind's like, oh, well, it must be me, so let me try this other thing. Or it's not you. And when something's so simple and effective, it's like, it doesn't matter. People, from my kids who, when they were 6, 7 years old, to people in their 70s, are able to do this. And it doesn't matter your race, religion, where you come from, what issues you've had. Like, it really is so easy. So that's my wish for you, for humanity, for the world, to like, yeah, get off that old hamster wheel.
Yeah, as you're talking, I think what I was hearing is that like in society, people value intelligence, but when they meet wisdom, they find what they really value. You know, because she was like Nikki as an example, who had gone back to her family after 12 years. It's like she was always an intelligent person, but now what they're hearing is like the wisdom, and it's like wisdom is really clear because it doesn't sound regurgitated.
It sounds it's yours, yeah.
It sounds like you've sourced it, and that's because when something becomes embodied, you don't have to memorize it, you don't have to remember it anymore. It is part of you, and it's where you operate from, and how you know the world to be, and where you kind of operate. You know, like it's just your de facto way of being, and so when you speak from that place, it's really clear, and that's an ageless thing. You know, somebody could be 85 years old and have very little wisdom, a lot of intelligence, or very little wisdom, and somebody could be 30 years old and have lifetimes worth of wisdom and actually very little intelligence, but they just kind of know the way of things. And you can always feel that texture in somebody, the difference between a data-driven human being and somebody who's really embodied and operates from there. And it's not to say that data that can't play an important role in decision making or anything else that you do, but it's like operating with one arm instead of operating with two. You know, animals are very instinctive, intuitive. I think a lot of times we're taught to mistrust our emotions, and I think there's some element of truth to that when we're so integrated with the mind and merged into it. And so what you're really feeling is a mental addiction that is confirmed by, you know, what we call an emotion, by some, you know, chemistry that's being released because the mind just kind of reaffirms its own belief systems. But when there's an air of malleability, you're able to be with your experience. Like Ilan said, the quote experience of stress is so much lessened that you're, you know, in a way, we're all distorted. We're all making up this reality. We're all making up the stories of our lives, right? But it's like some people have great stories and some that enable them to do amazing, incredible things and live incredible, rich lives with beautiful relationships. And then there's ones that isolate you, you know, and bring a lot of suffering and pain into your life. But at the end of the day, it's like true suffering is really just an incapability to be with what's up.
Yeah.
You know, like there's really no suffering if you can accept where you're at. When we were having this conversation, it's like for people who don't feel like they're making headway in their work, I think you get to take the responsibility for that. Perhaps not all of you, but there's a part of you, even if it's unconscious, that is committed to being where you're at. It does not want to let go of that story. It wants to reaffirm it in your relationships. It wants to reaffirm that you're bad or broken in some particular way. And again, you might be like, of course I don't want that, but nobody wants that. But if what you're seeing is a continuation of something, then at some level, you got to say, okay, well, there's an aspect of me that just cannot be with this. Like if your mind is saying, you know, stuff to you all the time that's really negative, and that's how 7 years of my life was spent, maybe more, and really, really hardship and mentally. Like I didn't quote overcome that, and I didn't resolve that. I just learned how to be with that to the point where it got heard so often from from like a loving space that it stopped needing to yell so loud to get my attention. You know, because there's like, what it's really saying is I'm in pain and I'm suffering and I don't feel safe, and it just says that in a lot of different ways. But it's like when that aspect of you feels safe, that you're going to be there to listen every time it comes forward, and you're not going to be against it or antagonize it or judge it, then it doesn't have to yell so loud. And the mind can kind of soften and quiet down, you know, and that's true for everything. Like, just look at children. It's like if they're yelling and screaming, then they're only yelling and screaming for one reason. No one's paying attention to them. they're not having the experience of being received. And so like the expression will just continues to get more loud or even violent if it needs to, right? Like the bully on the prototypical bully on the schoolyard is the one that's getting no attention at home. And so it's like they will do the thing even if it gets them negative attention because it gets them attention. And at the level of biology and evolution, it's like we need, as a child, someone to pay attention to us to feel like we can survive.
Yeah.
If no one's paying attention, then at any cost, we will get that attention. And so it's like, what is your inner world doing? It just mimics the same thing that an upset child would do, which is it will yell louder if you're not paying attention. And the more you try to resolve it, the more you try to stand against it, the more you try to get rid of it, inevitably it just yells louder and louder and louder until you come to peace with it. And that's, the surrender experiment that we're all running inside of ourselves constantly. I'm trying to think now, like if we had gone back and done, we could start over and say, hey, this is how you be successful in work. I still don't think that I would have overstepped the importance of doing the mindset work at all, like how crucial that is. Because for most people, even if that's really all you mastered, the quality of your life is going to increase exponentially. And I think the conversation that unfortunately starts, that kind of also gets to end, because human beings, as we can tell, are always reaching to the extremes and like kind of stretching in all the extremes to find out, okay, where's the balance point? So you're inevitably going to get everything wrong anyway. But like that conversation of like having to resolve stuff, and even going back even a year or two from Ilan and I, you would have heard, go back and listen to podcasts, go back and listen to webinars. We talked a lot about resolving things. I don't even say that anymore. I'm not, and I'm not saying there's things in your life that won't just kind of dissipate or disappear, but to say to resolve something and to say this will never enter my life again. And here's the reality: you really don't know. You cannot have a certain experience for 20 or 30 years, but then something really traumatizing happens, a loss, a heartbreak, financial, relational, health. And there comes that thing again. I can't promise you that if you find out tomorrow that you're stage 4 terminally ill, that you're not going to have to deal with fear ever again in your life of like, the impending demise or, whatever it might be. So it's like, it's so ridiculous to say. Today, I would just say what I'm always looking for and what Ilan's speaking into, I believe, is that it's like, can you build a capacity to just relish and be with as much of life as possible? Not fight, not argue, and Ilan just said it in a different way himself. He's like, hey, I don't want anything more. I just want more of what I already have, because it's like, once you get to that place, it's like, hey, I'm with whatever challenges I may have. Everything is now being seen through a lens of love. And what I really want is that lens of love to grow. So no matter what drips in, I'm still sitting in this place of love with everything that unfolds. Yeah. And that to me is like, that's the useful place. That's the place of, maybe if not ending suffering, certainly reducing it quite a bit. I think as long as we have egos, we can assume that we're not going to end suffering. Like the suffering just kind of comes with that mechanism. But the ability to reduce it or, only experience it once in a while clearly has an impact on our biology, on our chemistry, on our hormones, on our relationships, on actions that we take and everything in between. And so, yeah, that's really it. It was, I would have told my younger self, is like, stop trying to get rid of it. Yeah. Learn how to be with it and be around people who witness it and allow for you to find love through their perspective. Mm-hmm. And let that in as much as you can, even if it's little bits at a time. And you're going to find yourself in a predominantly beautiful place in just a few years from now.
Are you feeling inspired by these podcasts? Is this approach striking a chord with you? Imagine taking this journey even further with personal coaching from Guy and I, right from your own home on Zoom. Join us at our next live event. They happen quarterly. It's an accessible, cost-effective way to dive deep into these transformative practices, not just theoretically, but experientially. Attendees often share that they've experienced unprecedented levels of peace, support, forgiveness, and awareness. Remember, healing isn't just a mental exercise. It must be felt and released through the body. So here's a special gift just for you, our valued listener. Visit intuitivemind.live and use the coupon code OLDSOUL to receive 25% off your ticket. The Intuitive Mind event is unlike any other. So impactful that many participants return multiple times, some as many as 10, 12, even 15 times. Plus, once you register, we'll immediately send you a recording of a previous event so that you can start practicing right away. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to intuitivemind.live, secure your spot for our next live event using the coupon code OLDSOUL, and start your transformative journey today. Now, back to the show. Yeah, it's you're talking, I don't know why this came through, but it's like when I was a kid, I had a break with religion and had like a really shitty experience with the rabbi, and it was during my bar mitzvah, and like he just did something so shady that not that I had a lot of love for that world beforehand, but like after that, I was like, if a rabbi who's supposed to be this like, highly spiritual person can steal from a kid and justify it, like, fuck that. Like this whole system is broken, right? Then fast forward, I meet my wife, and her entire family are Orthodox Jews. So everyone in the family, right? Now, with the level of, I don't know that it was so much hate, but a level of like dislike or, opinions that I had about that world. If and Fanny and I now know each other for 17 years, we've been married for 15. Like if I had not been able to learn to be with that discomfort or be with that dislike, then how would I've ever been able to get close to anyone in her family? Right. So the thing kept showing up. It was like, here it is again, here it is again, here it is. And I have to tell you, in the beginning, like I was really dealing with myself because there's certain rules and laws and things that, all religious people like have. And it would start to like irritate me on the inside because like all my same stories and all that stuff. And then so every time it was like an opportunity to be with the experience, because look, this was going to be my family for many, 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 many decades, right? Like there wasn't an out. It wasn't like I could just sit there and stew and boil, right? There was a necessity to like work through something. So to what kind of guy was saying, it's like, I didn't go in there with this notion of resolving it or getting to this place of like, I have to make peace with Judaism or religion or anything like that. What I went though, is every time we sat at a dinner table or a Shabbat table or a holiday table or whatever it is, like in the beginning, I would really notice what was arising. And I would just really notice like, wow, there's so much stirring inside of me that is clearly uncomfortable in this moment. And it has nothing to do with them. Nothing to do with them. And so in that environment, it was this incredible teaching, right? Of like constantly. And then slowly what happens is things just begin to shift and move. And, now I can honestly say like, not that I would, for me, choose that path. Like I've found my own path that feels good and works for me. And I have so much joy in sitting in those places and watching people experience their joy through that path. Like, and this is not like something that I tell myself and I'm like, all right, Ilan, just notice how they love it. And like, see, I don't have to do that shit anymore. Like it really is just a holistic experience. So life is going to keep bringing you whatever your thing of stress or unease or dis-ease or discomfort is. And it's going to bring it in whatever way it knows is going to push that button, whether it's through your spouse, whether it's through your kids, whether it's through your in-laws, whether it's through a partner at work. It doesn't matter. Like, think of something right now that is creating stress in your life, whether it's a person or a situation or a circumstance or whatever it might be, right? And just ask yourself, how long has that been there? And here's my coaching. If it's been there for more than a year, if you have been trying to overcome, fix, change this thing for more than a year, then I'm going to invite you that whatever it is that you're doing is not working. And that it might be time to change formula. Because if you want that stress ongoingly, just keep doing what you're doing. But if you want to use that as a golden opportunity to actually learn how to be able to downregulate your nervous system and be able to give yourself that gift and then proceed by giving that gift to other people in your life so that you live in a, more relaxed environment at home. Your work environment is just calmer and less hectic. Like, you get to be that transformation in the world first. And that's, to me, it's like, I wish that was everybody's wish. Because everyone just focuses on like, oh, I want more money, or I want more health, or I want more this. And my question is like, okay, great. What are you doing about that? It's great to want shit. Wanting shit is like, it's the most simple, basic, ineffective. I want this. Great. Want it for the rest of your life. What are you doing about it? Every time someone's like, oh, I just want to feel more peace. I'm like, okay, what actions are you going to take to create more peace in your life? Because if the actions that you're coming up with, like, I'm going to read a couple of books about inner peace, I'm telling you right now, don't even fucking bother. What I mean, like, what actions, it's like, what daily practice are you going to take on, at least for the next 30 days, to see if that creates movement in that area? Daily. Without like these kind of daily habitual actions, you got no shot. If someone's like, I want to lose weight, I'm like, okay, great. What action are you going to take? And they're like, I'm going to go to the gym. Okay. Do you have a gym membership? No, I do not. Okay. When are you getting a gym membership? Great. How many days a week are you planning on going to the gym? I'm going to see if I could go once a week. Okay. Well, don't even bother. Just don't bother. The grandeur of the things that we want to the level of input that we are willing to give in order to get that thing, for most people, it's not the same thing. Like, if you want to climb to a top of a mountain, guess what? You're going to have to walk up some incline. Walking on the same flat surface that you've been walking on for years doesn't get you up to the top of the mountain. Walking to the top of the mountain gets harder. It takes more effort. It takes more energy. You're going to get tired. You're going to want to turn back. You're going to want to be like, I don't want to fucking do this anymore, because that's the effort it takes to get the things that you want. If it was easy to have six-pack abs, if it was easy to have, a 7-figure salary, if it was easy to be able to travel the world like on a whim, everyone would fucking do it. It's not easy. It takes diligence and it takes practice to create these structures in our lives. Without that, it's you got no shot. And to me, it's like, people talk such big fucking games, but it's like, when you look at the action to take, I'm like, you're never going to have it. I don't know what.
Yeah. I just want to put forth, it's like, peace as an example, right? If you want to be peaceful, people think, well, I'll just meditate or I'll read the books, like you said. But it's like, what does it mean to be peaceful? It means to be with everything that's not that.
Yeah.
So it means like you actually have to sit, not convince, but sit with the parts that are not peaceful. Like the real discomfort, like the discomfort of your situation, the discomfort of your emotions, the discomfort of your isolation, the discomfort of your depression, the discomfort of your physical suffering, emotional suffering. And it's not to like sit there and be like, oh, and like wallow in it. It's very different than what I'm saying. And that's what you get to develop, because at first it might be just feeling like you're sitting in the wallowing and you're like, how the fuck is this effective? It's not. You're right, it's not effective. But would you know what's effective until you've sat with that wallowing and found out that that's not effective?
Yeah.
And it's like there is, the practices that we put forward are to give people the resource stability and the perspective, and it really is a shift of mind in terms of where the mind is viewing from. But it's not like, oh, like let me reframe. It's not that. That's mindset work. We're talking about literally coming away from the part of the mind that's conditioned and looking from the pure mind, the objective mind, which is what the practices are. So if you're like, well, how do you do that? Well, that's why you would come work with us, right? So the how-tos. But it's like even once you have the how-tos, it will get you nowhere if you're not practicing those things. And to Ilan's point, it's like you cannot say, well, I want to be in the best shape of my life and go to the gym once a week. If you've never worked out, maybe one day was going to get you to the best shape of your life, but that means you haven't been in, you've been pretty unhealthy for a long time. But like nobody who's, had a six-pack knows you cannot do that. You can't go to the gym once a week and expect to have those kind of results. You got to be regularly active. And maybe it's not the gym, but at least you have to be moving on a regular basis and have muscle and burn a lot more and stuff like that, right? So it's like there are things that clearly work for people. But, every time people say, this is not working for me, here's what you got to get clear on. Again, I said it before, but it's like there's an aspect of you. It may not be this part that you can. If I'm like, hey, think about a gray SUV, you can do that, right? You can immediately bring that thought to mind, but that's not the part of the mind that's running the story, right? That's the part that you're like, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. You can shift that very, very easily. That's not the part that is doing that. If your life is exactly the same way that it's been before, you got to sit, or you get to sit if you want, with the part that's committed to keeping it the same.
Yeah.
And right behind that part is going to be grief, there's going to be pain, there's going to be unsettled emotions, there's going to be suffering. That doesn't sound sexy, because then you're like, why the fuck would I want to sit with that? But fine. But the opposite is avoiding all that and then continuing to have the life where you're suffering. And so your inability to be intimate with the suffering is what keeps you in the suffering.
Here's the piece that I want to add, and this is the really important piece, and this is what I was saying earlier. Like, you cannot do, Katie just put shadow work. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, you can read about shadow work, and you can understand shadow work, and there's some great books that we share all the time about shadow work. Here's the thing. You can't do shadow work on your own. You can't. You can maybe touch it and kind of begin to scratch the surface of the understanding of it. But here's the thing that you guys need to get. What Guy's pointing to right now, your mind has created construct upon construct upon construct, most of which you're not even aware of, are running in the background. They're like computer programs, like anti-malware, running in the background that you have no idea are running. And they are constantly managing what you're able to feel and not able to feel. And these shadows, like the core things that are running your life, your mind has locked up in a box behind so many doors and locks and things like that. It has no interest in going in there, because your nervous system, like I said, and you don't have a template for the nervous system to actually move that energy through, to move that emotion through, whether it's abandonment, sadness, grief, fear, whatever. You don't have it in you. And so you can try to do the work on your own, and you will scratch the surface of it, and you might like touch the thing to reignite it. But the second the intensity happens, all the same protections and all the same filters and all the same programs will automatically lock down, and you lose access. And if you've read these in books, the only way out is through. That means that every time one of those walls comes down, you basically go back to the start of the level. So like those that played video games, right? Like the wall comes down, you're back at the beginning of level 1. And then you go through again, you try to, and then that wall comes out and you just go right to the beginning. So the way to actually move through is when you sit with a practitioner, and this is what took Guy and I 15 years of mindset of trying to figure it out on our own and doing all that stuff, to realize that we keep bumping up against the same wall over and over, just from this side, this side, this side, this side, this side, this side, this side. And then you sit with someone and you finally feel what it feels like to move through a level of sadness or grief or abandonment or I'm not good enough in a way that you have never gone through it, because you're like, the intensity is so great when you move through it and you're like, wow, I have never felt anything like this before. And that's when it hits you like, I couldn't have gotten myself to feel this because my nervous system would never let me, my mind would never let me get to that place on my own. But if Guy and I today sit with each other or sit with our coach or sit in a group, right? It's like you're borrowing all that energy and all of that safety from the group or the other. And that's what allows you to move through that. So to me, it's like people, I believe, find their way to this community. And I get to speak to a few of you, during the week. Like the story that I hear over and over and over and over and over from all of you is you've put in effort, you've put in time, you've put in money, you've done practices. And it's that same frustration that I've been pointing to. It's like, and I'm still dealing with X, Y, and Z. And there's this life goal that you want, this vision of yourself that you have that is constantly feeling out of reach, no matter how much you spin your wheels and how hard you're working. And my belief is that people come to this community and to this energy and to this teaching when their soul is finally ready to move through and release that. And we see it time and time and time again. This work is not like, if it works, it's guaranteed to work as long as you show up and you do the work.
And it's important to have those like fundamental commitments, like I'm going to let go of this. I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to forgive other people. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to clean things up when they're not clean. We were just having a conversation again. One of our coaches that's been with us forever in Colombia, and she's L1. If you know who she is, she's the one that leads that. And she was just saying that she had a intuition to clean something up with an old friend of hers, and within, was it 2 weeks of that, the person passed away, or was it a number of days passed away. It's like people don't understand what they're carrying around and the impact that it's having on them. They feel it, but they don't have like the clarity as to what exactly is going on. Like I don't know that there's a more painful experience, certainly with a parent or a loved one, where there's anger or hostility there and it hasn't been forgiven yet, and then they pass away and you don't have that opportunity to forgive each other or to talk about it and clean it up as best as you can. And that doesn't always mean that everything's hunky-dory at the end. It just means you deal with things from an honest and truthful place. Like I was saying, over the years, as I dated different women before I got married, I got to be integrated in a lot of different family groups, and just see how other families operate. And it's always striking because we all have our, the way we grew up at home, and that's what we know, but we certainly don't know other people's ways. And then you get into another family, and you're like, whoa. And what I always noticed over the years was like the chess match that people play with family members.
Yeah.
You can't say this, you can't say that, don't sit here, don't do this, do that, like all this kind of stuff. I'm like, whoa, it feels like such a drain on the system to have to try to manage a human being like that, or to manage yourself so you can manage a human being like that. And it's something I can positively say that I appreciate about my family, or even about the cultures that we come from. They're like brutally honest to a T.
Yeah.
To maybe even a painful place sometimes. And having said that, like looking at the alternative, I would rather deal with a little bit of hurt, but at least know what the truth is and then start working from there, than to invent stories around myself or other people that are not truthful and then live in the lie just so things can be seemingly in the short term smoother. But then in the long term, you're carrying around all that pain, that anger, that stress of that person. And, you know, like in my previous relationship before Mandy, there was a grandmother there that just was like the battle axe of the family that just controlled everybody's lives. And like just watching this family try to manage this relationship was exhausting from the sidelines. Nevertheless, what it was like to actually be part of it. And then like she's still alive while other people have passed on, because again, old battle axe, you know, she's just gonna fucking do it. But it's just so much pain for that family, and no one's ever had an honest conversation with her. No one. Ever. And nothing ever changes. And they all carry it around, and they're all stressed out all the time. And every family vacation and every holiday is a problem. And where is she going to sit, and how we're going to invite her over so she's here the least amount of time. I'm like, oh my fucking God. Like, what? That's exhausting versus just dealing with the truth. You know? So it's like, at the level of relationship, it's always the same at the level of interrelationship. You know, like if you lie to yourself, and so like you're in pain, but you're like, but no, I'm not. I'm fine. I'll just keep working a lot harder, or you know, I'll just get into another relationship, or I'll just whatever it might be. Everything to avoid the experience that you're having. This is why people don't make headway. They're convinced that working harder or taking more action in the thing that they've made up is more important than sitting with the discomfort. And again, I'm not saying this is easy. I have sat with more grief, with more sadness, with more pain than I ever imagined was bottled up in my system, because there's parts of me that, just like you guys, did not want to deal with that. It actually made me feel like I was going to die if I sat with those things. But having now done that work for as long as we have, sitting with thousands of people, it's like nobody dies by sitting with an experience that they're having inside their body. There's nothing that your body can do internally that's gonna hurt itself.
Yeah.
There's no emotion that's gonna arise. It's like, all right, this is it. If we feel this one, I'm not gonna make it through. And to an extent, that's the kind of lie that most of us grew up with as children, was that we were told we cannot feel this. This is too much. This is uncomfortable. The family won't accept me if. And so when we grow up, we have these systems and stories around these really fundamental ideas of what it means to be an emotional, intuitive animal who's having experiences arising within them that we can't often articulate into words. However, we kind of know that they're there. So what happens when a person builds the capacity to be with the arising within them? Because it's not the circumstance that really matters. We think, oh, if I just had the right circumstance, everything will be hunky-dory. What good is the quote right circumstance if you still feel like absolute dog shit inside when it's there? You know, and contrast to that, what if you don't have the perfect circumstances, but internally you can be with whatever is arising about that? You're already free. And you're much more likely to change your circumstances when you're feeling settled, resourced, grounded, and you're able to make decisions and choices from that place and take action from that place in your life. You're much, much, much more likely to transform your life from that place with actions that you take than, you know, being like an animal who's falling down a pit, clawing its way to the top and trying to take action from that energy, which is mostly what people do.
Yeah. And that, you know, everything that guy's pointing to, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's what creates stress. Because then you're just in survival mode all the time. And to me, you know, when this kid comes up to us and he's like, I can't believe you're this young, or, you know, all these other people, it's like, that's the secret. The secret isn't the diet. The secret isn't, you know, any of that stuff. It really is, I believe, that we are giving our nervous system, which is the end all be all, it's the thing that's running everything, right? Like, we're giving it the medicine it needs on a daily basis to feel nourished, to feel resourced, to feel grounded, to feel connection, to feel love. And it responds in kind. You know, it takes care of your body. It takes care of your health. It takes care of your relationship. It's like your external world has to be a vibrational match to what is happening inside. If you don't like what's happening out here, then stop looking out here and go to the root cause and actually be with that. If you do that, however old you're turning this next year, go to our Facebook group and read some of the comments. Go watch people's testimonials. Like, don't even listen to us. This is not, I said to someone the other day, like, what I notice is that Guy and I have similar ways that we approach life. We love efficiency. And everything that we do in life is towards efficiency, whether it's our health, our relationships, our business. Like, we're always looking for what's the easiest thing to do that's going to get you the biggest results. And because we've always had that outlook on life, like the 23 years that we've been doing our personal development journey, we've always looked for the same thing. It's like, what's the simplest thing that we can do that creates the biggest reward, whether it was working out, whether it was this, whether it was that. And that's honestly what we share with people. We've met some incredible people who are super smart and have these incredible processes, but you know what? Like, I don't have 4 hours in my day to sit and commit to a process. I'm a husband, I'm an entrepreneur, like, I like my downtime. I don't have 4 hours. Now that might work for other people who can sit and spend 4 hours a day. Like, to me, that's not happening. But when someone's like, here's a 10-minute process that you can do every single day, and it's just going to build and build and build and build and build and build and build, I'm like, all right, let's do that.
You got my attention now.
Yeah. And watching thousands, if not tens of thousands of people go through this and do it and see that it keeps creating the same results for everyone, no matter their age, their background, their educational level, their nothing. All it takes is commitment and showing up. That's it. And if you got that, then all these things that we're talking about are right here, like easily accessible.
And if you're not doing that, I would just say you know avoidance is a really common pattern for people. Whether it's just working a lot more, like when people get buried in work and they're workaholics, it's a total avoidance pattern, right? To their relationships, to their health, whatever it might be. And you just gotta ask yourself, it's like, okay, what would happen if I stopped avoiding that? Like this discomfort that's arising in my system. What if I didn't do all this action? Then the discomfort's going to arise, right? That's what you're avoiding by doing all that action. So it's like, okay, then stop taking the action and be with the discomfort of what happens if I stop taking all this action. Now you're at the first stages of that healing, right? And that's what happens is like we can look at something, we can look at a process, and we can misinterpret it and turn it into hard work, right? Like like for those of you guys who are in our work, you do mini practices. There's a point for some of you guys where you'll use mini practices to avoid what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. But like, it's like we need to, and that's part of the process is like identifying those subtleties. Oh, they told me if I just do this, I'm going to heal. I'm not healing. It's like, okay, well, talk to me. What's going on? And I'll be like, okay, I can see what you're committed to. You're committed to making it look like you're working really hard, but there's an aspect of you that's holding on to this, and it's not going to like, oh, you're not actually sitting with what's there. Some of us, again, I just want to point out this, and it's not to blame anybody. Some of us are more committed to the complaint than we are to letting it go. So, and if you find yourself repeating the same stories over and over again about your life, and it's the same problem over and over and over again, then guess what? Chances are you're more committed to the story and the complaint than you are to surrendering and letting go. And to actually having the experience of what that story is generated and created. And until you're willing to be responsible for that, everything, like, chances are that nothing else you do is going to work. I don't care. You could sit in 5,000 minis. Like, that's what you're sitting in a mini for. You want to reaffirm it to yourself internally. And again, I'm speaking from personal experience and how I got myself into depression and suicidal thoughts. Like, I can literally see the pathway that I took to get there. And then and it wasn't like I knew that I had done that. It was something I generated over time as an experience. And then I was really committed to proving that experience right. Somehow I was still the hero in the story who was suffering. In the way that my mind formulated it, we all justify the experiences that we're having. And it's like, you cannot, for better or worse, even for the best, even if you have the best story, it's still always open to transformation. You could still always change and make completely new choices every single day of your life. So, you got to ask yourself, what am I committed to? And only you can honestly answer that for yourself. I think we'll stop it there. For those of you guys who are with us today or listening on the podcast, you can go to intuitivemind.live to join us for our next program. We're about a month out from the recording of this. If you put in podcast 25 at checkout, it'll save you 25% on your ticket. Comes with a companion ticket. And if you really, really want to dive deep into this work, you haven't been to our live events yet, and you want to go beyond just theory and you want to go into practice, which is the only way to change and transform your life and have these things that we're talking about, is to come do it on a regular basis. And it certainly helps to do it at the level of group and with other people. It will accelerate and incubate your learning in a really profound way. We prove that time and time again at events. So, jump on in with 2 feet. You'll get the intuitive mind training immediately sent to you so you can take advantage and start getting through that work. And then, of course, you'll join us at the live event coming up here at the end of June. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for being with us. We'll catch you next week. And best of luck to you. All the love in the world to you and your family. Take care.
Thank you, dear one, for choosing to share a bit of your day with us. We value you greatly. And as a way to give back and help you to deepen these practices, we want to invite you to join our incredible community on Facebook. You can do so easily by going to joinoldsouls.com and ask for an invite. This is our private community where old souls and seekers are able to grow and share their journey with others. We hold exclusive weekly live streams, we answer your personal questions, and offer valuable insights that we won't be able to share here on the podcast. So again, just head to joinoldsouls.com and grab your invite today. And as always, if you enjoy this podcast, please head to iTunes and leave us a review. It's the only way other people can find this show. So if it's making a difference in your life, please share the love. Until we meet again, have an amazing week, dear one.